Hey folks, welcome back to Dig Drive DIY. You know, I was out in my office late last night, about 10:30 p.m., editing this very video that you're watching right now, and a single bead of sweat started to roll down the side of my face. I was just sitting there editing, so I figured it's that time of the year, you know, when we need to do something about that. Now, this video isn't about the weather or how hot it can get in my office, but as I was thinking about moving this air conditioner unit over to the shop, it occurred to me that this little rig right here would be a perfect test for what this video is about, which is our driveway. Most of you on here know I'm pretty OCD about our stone driveway, and I like to keep it looking as nice as possible. But recently we've had a couple things occur that, well, it kind of messed up our driveway. I myself dug a trench right through the most heavily trafficked area of the driveway. And secondly, the county is doing some major reconstruction on our road, which has affected our driveway entrances. So as a result of both those things, I need to do something to our driveway that I personally haven't done in a long, long time, believe it or not. And that is add stone to our driveway. Or is it gravel? That's a really good question. So I think that's a good way to start this video. I'm going to address what is the difference between gravel and stone. I'll show you how I'm going to fix up and then add stone to our driveway. And then lastly, I'll show you how this loaded up little red wagon can hopefully test to see whether or not I did a good job. You'll see.
Dig Drive DIY.
So I myself am guilty of causing confusion between the terms gravel and stone. I think that's just a product of slang, local terms, local nomenclature, and just how we talk about things in general. These three piles here are all different rocks. They're made of rocks, but one of them is what I'd call stone, and two of them are from gravel. There is a big difference, and it's mainly in how they were derived. All of it comes from the earth, from the ground, but through different processes. Gravel are deposits in the earth that are generally close to the surface, closer to the surface. So these are round rocks that have been weathered by water and erosion, and they've been deposited in the ground. And these you would extract from a gravel pit. So one of the issues for me and why I always kind of mix up the terms is that when we were growing up, we lived on a gravel road, what we called a gravel road. And our road out in front of our house was gravel too. I say gravel, but it wasn't actually gravel, it was crushed limestone. But not more than 10 miles from here, you can drive on a gravel road. I'm literally about 2 or 3 miles from my house. We're in a different county, and here they are using gravel. This is honestly, truly a gravel road. Look at the difference. See, it's all rounded stones. Rounded stones with soft edges. There's a nice round one. So this is literally where the term gravel road comes from. I'll show you one of the gravel pits where this stone might have came from actually. So right here is an example of what a gravel pit looks like in our area. So this is less than 10 miles from our house, and there's an enormous topography change between where we live and where I'm at, just 10 miles north. This is all glacial deposits, and you'll find these little pockets scattered all throughout the farmland up here. They're big deposits of sand and gravel that are usually pretty close to the surface. And when you find these big pockets or deposits of sand and gravel, you can go in there and dredge out the hole, and you wind up creating a lake where you take out all the material, but you'll pull out all the sand and gravel. It'll be all mixed together with slurry and mud, but you'll run that through some type of machine that can separate the sand from the mud and the gravel. And then it'll go through another set of machines that separates the gravel by different sizes. So it'll group the big rocks together, and it'll group the really small, tiny rocks together. And this is where we get all of our sand for concrete work, masonry work. A lot of the sand that we use is just super fine, tiny gravel pieces that have been worn and weathered over time. I wish I knew more about their process, and it looks really, really interesting judging by this gravel pit and the dredge that they have out over the top of the lake, but you can kind of see the shallow area that they're working and where they bring that out from, you know, underwater and then separate it out on top of the land. One of the interesting things about this gravel pit that's so close to our house is that I passed 3 or 4 gravel pits on the way here that are now since closed. So unfortunately, gravel is a limited resource. We're using it up. And just in my lifetime, since I've been doing this type of work, I've seen the availability of gravel and sand sharply decline, and I've seen the price rapidly increase. So a lot of times now it's just for the essentials like, you know, making concrete and things of that nature, or decorative rock for landscaping. And so the smallest of the gravel is called pea gravel, like what we have in our beach. And then larger gravel is what oftentimes you'll see in landscaping because it's multicolored, it's softer, not softer, but it has rounded edges, meaning it's not sharp. And it just is much more decorative most of the time. The pea gravel that we used in our beach, it's softer because it doesn't hurt your feet really. A lot of people mistakenly think this is gonna be really hard on your feet, but actually it's kind of massaging. It doesn't hurt at all, and I have very delicate feet. Now, on the other hand, the stone over here, that's a different story. This is what's around the pond. This is crushed limestone. So this would not be pleasant to walk on. It's much sharper, has really coarse edges, and this is hard on your feet and difficult to walk on. So this stuff comes from a quarry, and it's usually deposited much, much deeper in the earth, usually a couple hundred feet to get down to the limestone. And then they do the same thing. They bring it up and process it with screens. They crush it because it comes out as great big huge chunks, and then they just keep working it down until you get to the different sizes that you want. Nowadays, our roads are made of crushed limestone in our county. Matter of fact, our road was chip and sealed about 8 years ago. They covered up the limestone that we had and chip and sealed it on top, and we had a super nice surface. But recently they rebuilt a bridge one road over, and so as a result, our road was heavily traveled by a bunch of dump trucks during the construction of that new bridge, and it tore up our road. So the county has decided to resurface our road. They came in and they dumped 4 inches of fresh new limestone all down our road, the section that we live on. And then once they had 4 inches of new limestone on top, they came in with this gigantic rototiller. And this rototiller is designed to mix up the new existing stone on top plus the stone underneath. I believe it mixes to a depth of 8 inches. So 4 inches of fresh new, and it'll grind up 4 inches of the existing road bed below it. So it's tearing up all that chip and seal that was under there and combining it with the new stone and trying to create a new base for our road that then they will then hopefully come in and top coat with new chip and seal before the end of the summer. Right now, our road is stone. It's dusty and dirty, but thankfully they came in a couple weeks ago and put a layer of calcium chloride on top, and that has helped to cut the dust. But regardless, we still have to go slow on our road now to keep down on the rock chips and the dust. But limestone is what's on our road. Limestone, crushed limestone, is what's in our driveway. And so I went to the stone quarry. I made it here to the quarry. I think these are number 11s. These are the finer stone that we have on our driveway. Not very big, a lot of fines. It's not for everyone's, you know, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but this is what we like. All right, well, the first thing I'm gonna do is get the skid loader going, because this is what I'm gonna use to spread the stone. And I also need to do a little bit of work to prep for this too. I'll get out there and I'll explain what I'm gonna do. Okay, for those of you that might have missed it, we recently installed this whole house backup generator. That's a pretty cool video, by the way. But anyway, I trenched across the driveway. Kara's making a lot of noise with the leaf blower. You can kind of see that trench right there. Okay, it's collecting a lot of leaves because it's a little bit lower. It's right here. See that? It's hard to tell on camera. But anyway, this trench has settled a little bit. I had it nice and leveled up, but it's since settled. There you can see it in the camera because it's this dry area. So what I need to do is I need to blend this together better first. This is hard compacted stone that hasn't been disturbed, and this is where that trench was. We've got some settling followed by, you know, very hard undisturbed compacted stone. So I'm going to try to take the skid loader with the hydro bucket and kind of grind this edge down, and then hopefully that'll make it so I can blend it together a little bit better, get it leveled off, and then once that's done, then we'll add stone. I need some powder in this here so it's not all loose. So I'm going to grind it first, grate it out, and then we'll add stone. It's actually starting to rain a little bit, which is perfect. Have a little moisture to pack in this trench with the stone. If I filled it up with just fine stone, like if I filled it up with just loose stone, then they'd always work their way out of the trench. It's got to be compacted in level first and then add on top of it. Hopefully that all makes sense, what I'm trying to do. But I'm going to use the tractor and the grader box now to grade that pathway up. Then I'll kind of wheel pack it in with the tractor, and then we'll fill it in with new stone. All right, it's gonna be hard to tell on camera, but I did get that trench leveled up. I used a lot of powder and fines and the material that I had ground up on either side. All that kind of went together, and I leveled up this area 5 feet wide instead of as wide as the trench. And the trench was still there, is what I'm trying to say. You could feel it when you drove in here. You could feel the bump, and that's just because it had settled and worked its way down. I'm trying to eliminate that or mitigate that a little bit. So now I'm going to come back through and bring this across the top and try to sand this all smooth. And yes, that means it's time for circles, because you would sand it this way or back and forth to make it smooth, not in line with the dent or the trench. You know, that's not how you finish something. You go across it. All right, so I spent a little time using my John Deere tractor and that pull type grader box, and I tried to get everything leveled up as best that I could. And of course I did the circles, and I started over the top of the trench so that I could smooth that area and then gradually work my way out beyond. And then finally I graded it, you know, long ways, directional, trying to get out the lines of the circles. And then I went ahead and wheel packed it. A lot of people question why I do this, and that's just to kind of seal it in and lock in those stones. If I use the skid loader, the tracks are going to really disturb and tear up the stones that I just packed in. So I think a better choice is going to be the backhoe. The rubber tired backhoe won't really disturb this area that I've kind of got graded out. And I think that I'm going to dump the load on Louie right here in the middle to work from. But 18 tons just doesn't go very far when you spread it out over this large of an area. I probably need 2 or 3 loads, to be honest with you, but at over 500 bucks a crack, not right now. Sarah's over there pressure washing. She's cleaning the soffit and the gutters. It gets that mildewy green mold stuff on there. And so she's trying to get that cleaned up while I get this worked up. All right, now I just gotta spread it out. I debated on whether or not to try to spread it with the dump truck, but it was gonna be a lot of monkeying around. I'm just better at spreading it with the backhoe, so start scooping. I used the backhoe to scoop up all those 11s and try to scatter them across the entirety of the driveway. I knew that it wouldn't be a perfect job, but I was going to follow up with the grader box, so used the backhoe and just got it moved around. And it worked great, because on those tires, like I said, it did much less damage to the ground than what trying to maneuver around with the skid loader would have done. That's my biggest complaint about the skid loader, is that it tears up your nice gravel driveway. So that's kind of one reason why I don't use it so much around here. It's just for away games. But I got all the stone spread and then grabbed the 755 in the grader box, started knocking it all down. It was looking really good, going smoothly, and then I noticed the tractor was running weak, obviously running out of fuel, so I just got a buzz over here and we'll put some fuel in it. The pump's stuck. Okay, we're back in action. Time to go finish grading up there. Yes. Reply. Today happens to be Father's Day, so we're having everybody over here this afternoon for a little get-together. When you first grade it and you add new stone, especially those fine stone that are washed stone, it is a little bit marbly. I use the term marbly, like they're kind of thick and washy and kind of hard to walk in. But then after a few weeks, they get packed down, driven on, and settled in, and it'll be terrific. So it always looks really, really good right after you grade it, and it does look good. I've got some of those ridges and lines in there from the grader box, which are always bothersome to me. I wish there was a way I could make it perfectly smooth, but that's what I need. I need a smooth drum, self-propelled roller, not something on the skid loader, because you'd still produce tracks from the skid loader. But so after the county raised the road up 4 inches, it made this entrance or approach to our driveway much steeper. There was an actual ledge here. I think I've got it all fixed up now. They helped out with some of the taper there, but those new stones that I got went in here too to help blend it together. But I've got the driveway all graded up now. It's looking pretty good. It's been about a week actually. It's been rained on a few times. It's been driven on, and it's compacted in. It looks nice. So I think I've solved my two problems. At least I know the approach and the entranceway is nice and smooth and even out to the new elevated road. Really the only thing left to do is to test my trench over there to see if I've got it fixed properly. And well, if you remember from the beginning of this video, I have the perfect rig set up to go test that right now. If you pull something with small wheels across an area that isn't compacted or firm enough, it'll cut in. So you can tell where I pulled it from the blockhouse sidewalk to here, there are no tracks in the stones. But right here where this trench was, prior to this fix-up job that I did, you could see the tracks. These stones were real squishy. So I'm gonna pull this through here and see if it leaves any marks. Just slight tracks. See, here's an example of an area that doesn't get any traffic, and the stones really haven't had a chance to be compacted in yet. And as a result, the stones are real washy and marbly, like I like to call it. And it's hard to pull the wagon through those stones. They don't work well. A little bit right here maybe, but it's not bad. It's way better than it was. You know what? The driveway now passes the loaded little red wagon test. So I think I got that fixed up much better than it was. And I like that test because it just goes to show how much compaction or base you have underneath your driveway. It's a good way to measure. But I need to get this AC window unit put in the office because it is getting hot. So I want to thank you so much for clicking on this video. I want to thank the patrons that have jumped over to the Patreon page. If you'd like to support us over there, go check it out. Very much appreciated. Otherwise, for everyone else, and all of you together, I want to thank you so much for clicking on this video. I hope that you liked it. If I'm lucky, I'll see you in the next one. All right, time to get out of the heat. Okay, DDD Summer Edition has arrived. Probably just gonna hang out in here now the rest of the summer.